good evening, listeners. This is Artfan here from the Pony 411 podcast, sitting down for my first ever interview. And tonight, for your listening pleasure, I am here with the director, writer, producer, and all-around creator of the MLP fan film, Journey of the Spark. Mr. Eric Ridenour is here with me tonight. What's going on, Eric?
Hi. Very excited to be here.
and we're excited to have you. I'm excited because I get to do an interview. Woohoo!
It's your first one. You have a very professional tone in your voice. Very CNN sounding, at least according to my ears, anyway.
Thank you. No, you'd be amazed how many people at my job tell me I have a radio voice. But anyway.
And I'm not. Where do you work, actually?
I work at the Apple Store here in Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, it's a great job. You meet a lot of interesting people, and it's part of what got me into technology. So.
Oh, that's really cool.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I recommend to any creative people, go work at Apple. You will meet more creative people, and it will be awesome.
The tables have turned. The interviewer has become the interviewee.
Yes. But, anywho, yeah, man, so you have... I guess to start things off here, let me just say that what you're undertaking is really, really like intense and fascinating. I did a lot of reading on the Tumblr page about this project, and like for me, fan films and all that, and just the creation of movies, especially if it's done at more of an amateur level, that type of stuff always fascinates me. I guess it's kind of like the underdog thing. I like to pull for the people with no budget, or the people that have passion and just have this drive to create something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, how did this develop for you? Like, how did Journey of the Spark started? What sparked this idea, if you will? I'm here all night, folks. Thank you.
Well, see, it's interesting because Journey of the Spark actually started out. It didn't start out as a film, actually. It was based on a dream that I had one night, way back in November of 2011, around the time when season 2 of Friendship is Magic was actually airing, and I had a dream where. It was basically the main 6 minus Twilight and Princess Luna and Spike walking across a giant log over a chasm with a waterfall in the background. Wow. And it was essentially kind of like at the time, Discord was the only antagonist of the show. And I was telling myself, how would I envision a series finale for Friendship is Magic actually happening? Like, what would the ending to the story be? And so I came up with the idea that if I was going to do something like that, it would have to be Twilight learning the most important lesson in the magic of friendship, because, you know, that made the most sense to me in terms of how the story of the show would actually end. However, at the time, it wasn't actually based on the Friendship is Magic continuity. It was based on a parody show that I do, an improvisational comedy show called My Little Pony, the Brony Edition. And I pitched the story to 4 other of my friends who were working with me on the show. We all voiced the characters. We're all guys. So on that show, I voiced Twilight, Applejack, Fluttershy, and Celestia.
Nice.
I voiced all of them. And I basically was telling them, yeah, I'm coming up with this story, and I don't know what to call it, but it involves Twilight causing an event like so bad, like even worse than the one in Lesson 0, that everybody hates her. And I couldn't think of a title for it. And then my friend Edward Marmot, who's actually the co-producer on Journey of the Spark, he came up with the name for it, and he was like, Eric, why don't you call it Journey of the Spark? And he said the spark because it referred to the line that Twilight says in Friendship is Magic Part 2. You know, it's like the spark.
Yeah, definitely.
And it just had a really nice ring to it. Like, it sounded so catchy. And so I decided I was starting to kind of make it into an audio drama based on the continuity of our series. But the problem with that was eventually at some point Eventually at some point, I God, I'm barely getting over the flu, so it's like I have to clear my throat a lot. So
Oh no, it's okay. It's going around, dude. I know the feeling.
yeah, yeah, I was feverish like a few days ago, so it was just like, oh my God, it was terrible.
Brutal.
Probably the worst that I've had in a while. But off topic. But basically, the thing is that we've only done like up to episode 25 in season 1. We're not even finished with the first season yet, so it was like we just didn't have enough material to really actually suffice actually doing this big of a story, because it was, constantly evolving, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And around that time, our small, tiny little fan base was actually becoming interested in this story too, because I was telling them about it. And there was a guy called Mr. JJKB, otherwise known as Jan Engel, who's the assistant director on the film. And he wanted to sign on, and he wanted to do animation and art and stuff like that. So he was like one of the very first people who actually signed on for the project. But
nice.
What ended up happening was just that I just told Ed, I just told him, dude, I can't make this a Brony Edition movie because we just don't have enough. We don't have enough there to actually justify it. Why don't we make it a Friendship is Magic movie? And we decided to do that. And the audio drama was going to be like a 3-act musical, basically. It was going to be a huge story. And so what ended up happening was that I decided I made an announcement that to my fans that it was going to become a Friendship is Magic movie. And one of the first people that, because the very first character I was immediately thinking of, because the movie is centered very heavily around Twilight, I was looking for an actress who could voice her. And the very first person that I ever came across was Meredith Sims, who voices Twilight in Fighting is Magic.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I was a really huge fan of her demo reel, because I got like a really good sense of emotion from her, and the script calls for a lot of heavy emotional material. So Meredith was always my first choice for casting the character. But what ended up happening was that I was a total nobody at the time, and what happened was that I messaged her on her YouTube thinking, oh my God, she's not going to say no to this. She's like in like the most anticipated project in the community. So I just said, hey, my name is Eric. I'm working on a fan film called Journey of the Spark. Do you want to hear more about it? Would you be interested? And then she messaged me and she was like, yeah, this kind of sounds a little interesting. Can you give me more details about it? And I'm like, really? I was taken aback.
Things just fell into place, basically. Once you said yes, then.
Yeah, I mean, well, because I basically, what I had done was that I replied with this really lengthy pitch. Basically, I told her a synopsis of the story, the ideas behind it, what I wanted to do with it, why I was making it, and and she signed on to it for 2 reasons. One, because it was a musical. As soon as she heard that it was a musical, she was just like, "Oh my God, get me on this project! I've never been in a musical before."
Nice.
And 2, she just thought that it was a really good pitch, and it was a very enthralling story. And what had happened was that, as it's really because of Meredith that Journey of the Spark really got started, and because once Meredith signed on, this she had access to like all these amazing and really huge people with a really good set of resume items on them. It's like soon I started meeting like all these people who did like these really huge things in the community, and I never expected myself to really even do that. I mean, it wasn't just that actress from Fighting is Magic anymore. It was people from Fighting is Magic to the Dot Mauve series to Friendship is Witchcraft to Epic Web Time and all these things, just all of it, encompassing it. And it was insane, and it blew itself out of proportion, and it skyrocketed, almost instantly. And in less than half a year, because the casting for it began around June, just before I went to BronyCon in New Jersey that summer. In less than half a year, it became this phenomenon, and it became this widely anticipated thing, and I had no idea how to respond to that, like, at all. It was completely new to me, like that feeling of getting a really large audience, in that sense.
Right. So getting in contact with her was basically what blew the door open not just in terms of you getting in touch with more voice actors and whatnot, but also just acquiring a fan base.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was like the very beginning, like the tip of the iceberg, in that sense. And around the time that Meredith actually did sign on, the script still hadn't been finished. So because it literally took me a year to write that whole thing. The story was something that was very, very important to me, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But it took an entire year to write, from the conceptualization back in November of 2011 to November of 2012. Down from conceptualization to outline and then to the first draft. Just the first draft alone. I mean, we're still we're still editing it to get our final. But it took us a while, and while we were getting everything situated and we were hiring a lot of people, Meredith was also helping me out with the story, because she's a writer too. She's actually the head story editor on the film as well. So in a way, everybody, like even the voice actors, have their own set of input on what they think works with the film and what doesn't, and it's all like one huge collaborative process in that way.
Right. And it's important that they have that input, that they're allowed to, because I think voice actors need to be able to find their own footing with the characters. Like I when I listen to most voice actors, I find that a lot of it is really good improvisation. They don't like it's very little directing, and they just kind of find the character on their own.
Mm-hmm. And with Meredith, I did it in a very different way in that sense, is that since she is the one voicing Twilight, and she's the one, like, literally, when I gave her the synopsis, when I pitched the film to her, it was just like this small, brief little paragraph, pretty much. It's like, this is kind of the general synopsis that you can release, to the public. But then when she signed on to the project itself, I basically what I did is that I didn't act it out, but I pretty much pitched the entire story from beginning to end to her, because I told her, you're the main character of the film. I want you to know the story backwards and forwards, because I want you to be able to identify with Twilight. You need to identify with your character. And Meredith and I, we discussed this on a previous interview, but she was telling me, like, her exact words is that it's really strange of me to say this, but when you really dig deep down into it, Journey of the Spark, in terms of its story, it's very human, and that's saying a lot, because it's coming from they're ponies. Like, they're not human to begin with, but there's such like a really large sense of humanity found within the context of the story. And
right. Well, they're written in a way to be very human
exactly.
characters.
Because my logic was that, and the reason why my logic was, and my reasoning behind writing Journey of the Spark that way was because of the fact that the character's sense of humanity was the thing that made me fall in love with the show in the first place. Because I myself am very much like a Twilight Sparkle in that sense. Because I have Asperger's syndrome, and when I was growing up, I was always fascinated with film. I think the very first movie that I ever saw was E.T.
Yeah, it mentions that on your
Yeah,
site actually, how you saw E.T. and you were very inspired by the works that Spielberg had done and Lucas and these other types of directors.
yeah, because at that age, I mean, because when I first saw E.T., I mean, I didn't know what to think about it. I mean, like, it wasn't until that scene in the movie when Elliot and E.T. on Halloween night are riding in the forest, and then they're just about to go over the cliff on the bike, and then E.T. uses his powers to make the bike fly over the forest, and the iconic flying over the moon scene.
Yeah,
And
scene.
and as soon as I saw that scene and I hear that music, the John Williams score, I cried, and I was mesmerized. I stared at that TV for like a good minute or two, and I was like very, very young, maybe like 4 or 5 when I saw it, and I in the back of my mind I was basically saying to myself, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. These are the type of movies I want to make. Movies that can movies that can get like a sense of emotion out of you, that can evoke something from you, something that you can relate to, and something that kind of makes you think about think about humanity, and what is it about us as human beings that makes us really, really special. And later on I learned, I because I'm a huge animation fanatic. I mean, for one, and I grew up loving the films of Don Bluth and the early works of Walt Disney. Pinocchio being my favorite Disney movie of all time. I love that movie to death.
Really?
Yeah, because those movies were really dark, like really dark in their context and really dark in terms of the imagery that they would show to you. But it never treated me, a child, like I was stupid. Like so many other animated films nowadays in the industry do. I mean, for every How to Train Your Dragon, there's like 3 million other Madagascars or Shrek sequels or
Right.
things like that.
Let's not even get started on the Shrek sequels.
Yeah.
But that does bring up an interesting question, though, because one of the things that stood out to me when I was reading through your site was that it's a goal of yours to be able to write these darker, more mature storylines, but present them to children in a respectful way. So in that regard, I'm curious to know, what sort of can we expect in Journey of the Spark? Like, what is it that you take from like the way these movies do it that you would place into your project right now?
Well, I mean, Journey of the Spark it's a very, very personal story. I mean, a lot of the stuff that happens in the film and happens to Twilight and the characters was stuff that I took from my own childhood. I mean, a lot of my childhood was, a lot of bullying and verbal and physical abuse from people who never really understood me. And initially, I always told myself, one of the things that I was always terrified of, and it's common, for kids with autism, to feel this way, especially with, regular grown-up people, and just with people in general, people who aren't even diagnosed with a social disorder like that people are afraid of change. Like a lot of people are terrified of it. And I always told myself that was a theme that I always really wanted to explore because I was afraid of it, for one, because I think me being a brony and me liking something like My Little Pony, especially like the earlier generations, because I'm one of those people who actually respects the earlier generations -3, because without those there wouldn't be a Friendship is Magic. There wouldn't be Generation 4. And without those previous generations, Lauren Faust wouldn't have gotten the inspiration to make Friendship is Magic in that sense.
Right, and I always find it so interesting that the show has the appeal it does, that in a way it completely turned the demographics on their ear, because
yeah, exactly.
Like, I doubt even Lauren Faust would have expected to see so many bronies, I mean, watching a show aimed at little girls. So it's a testament to the show's great writing and
Yes,
great
they
creative
did.
staff, without a doubt.
Yeah, and so I was always telling myself, well, because I was thinking of the characters that I felt that because of the fact that I was afraid of change, because the biggest example of that when I was a kid, why I was afraid of things changing was when my mom and dad got divorced when they split up,
Oof, that's
and
rough, man. I'm sorry.
yeah, and it was at a very early age, like around when I was 7 or 8, or maybe like 6. I don't remember. It was like 98, I think. So, oh shoot, I was 5. Okay, never mind.
How do I
Yeah.
math?
How do I math? What do? And I mean, I loved my dad because I mean he was very supportive of what I wanted to do, and he really understood. He still understands my aspirations, and he understands how creative of an individual that I could be. But my mom, on the other side, she was more like she was the more your education matters more. You need to go to school, kind of person. So I mean, like she was still supporting of my of my endeavors, and she put her best. She put my interests forward as much as she could, but she was more strict than my dad was, and I always just liked the freedom that my dad gave me. So when my dad left, I just couldn't get used to it for a while, and I was just I couldn't handle the change, and so what had happened was that when I was thinking of the ideas for Journey of the Spark, I was telling myself, well, how can I apply that to ponies? And then I thought of the idea. I thought of the story idea and the story that we were coming up with. And it's the fact that what the story of Journey of the Spark entails is that Twilight basically causes a rift between every single one of her friends that makes everybody hate her, including Celestia and Luna. And so, she's completely grief-stricken, and she feels as though this mistake has been so huge, nobody can ever forgive her. And so she kind of puts herself in a position of self-exile. And this was something I used to do a lot of the time too. I always felt as though if something was my fault, I had to punish myself for it, and I felt as though I wasn't wanted. I felt as though it wasn't something like people just hated me. I mean, that's what I always thought for the longest time, was that people just absolutely despised my existence. And when and so what happens is that amidst all of this chaos, to say the least, Discord finds a way to come back. And so Discord, feeding off of Twilight's guilt, seeing that she's completely guilt-stricken, strikes a deal with her that completely separates her from everybody that she's ever loved. So now the girls have to go on this incredible journey far beyond Equestria to find Twilight and rekindle their friendship, to stop Discord and save Equestria from the forces of evil. But while it might seem that Twilight's not the main focus, really the focus is not only on the adventure, but it's also on Twilight's development just as a character. The whole idea of change is like a very strong theme found in the film, in terms of the fact that the story kind of asks the question, like it kind of often questions the inevitability of change. Like the story says, change is inevitable, and oftentimes friendships can completely break apart when the world around you begins to change. But the people that love you the most and the people that will stand by you are going to stay with you even when the world around you changes. And so Twilight, throughout a majority of the film, is like she has this sense of uncertainty about her, because she doesn't know whether or not she should go back with her friends, or if she should just keep running away from the fact that her life could inevitably change. If when eventually in the future, who knows if they're going to stay friends anymore? I mean, like, who knows if their friendship will last an eternity. Who knows? And she has that uncertainty, and
Right.
that's where a lot of the heart of Journey of the Spark comes from.
In a way
Is
that
that
is, in a way that sounds like it is the journey of the spark, is that spark of friendship that these main six have, and it's that journey to kind of rekindle that and like starting fresh again.
Yeah, and really, I mean, like, and really, if I could, if I mean, like, I'm trying to describe this, as as in depth as I can without giving spoilers. That's
Right. No, and
like
that's
that's what I'm
the
trying to
hardest
do.
part for sure.
That's really the hardest part because I mean, it's an amazing story. Really, I mean, it's very rare when I can honestly say that about any work that I've done. I mean, like, this is a story that I'm very, very proud of. Especially
And you
since,
sound it too. I mean, the way you
yeah,
talk about it, you can tell that you put a lot of dedication into this, you and everybody else involved.
yeah, of course. And really, I mean, I just felt that, like I felt that connection with Twilight, because with her causing that mistake and then her thinking about the uncertainty of her future, about whether or not her friendship will actually, if those friendships can last forever. I mean, that's a feeling that I've had numerous times before in my life, and it's happened, countless times. And I felt as though by making the character human in that way, she could actually identify with more audiences outside of the Brony community and to a more general audience. Because I'm not aiming to make this movie for the Bronies. I mean, really at
Right.
all. I mean, I'm aiming to make this as a film that anybody can universally watch.
Yeah. Which is what the show is. It's a show that anybody
Yeah,
can
of course.
universally get into.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, I mean, I opted to because I mean a lot of people keep asking me the question, especially since Keep Calm and Flutter On recently came out. It's like, Discord turns good, is that going to affect your story, or is that going to affect Journey of the Spark or in any way? And I tell them Journey of the Spark's not canon. I mean, like, it's all a completely original story. It's all a standalone story. And it has nothing to do with season 3. It's inspired by the first 2 seasons, but nothing from season 3 is really acknowledged.
Right.
And
In a way, it's loosely based.
Yeah, and any references that we make to season 3 were completely unintentional. Because this story was developed far before season 3 was even announced. This story was developed around the time that Return of Harmony was new. So it's been in the works for a while, and it was difficult, not to give into temptations and
To write in stuff from season 3, you mean?
yeah, write in stuff from season 3, because there was some good stuff and there was stuff that we thought could work, but initially we just opted not to, because if we had to keep updating the story in order to keep up with the continuity, then I was telling my team the movie's never going to get made.
You'd become a slave to the continuity of the show. It'd be like a race. You'd have trouble winning to try to keep up with everything that they're introducing.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I just said first 2 seasons only. And that's basically it. Just inspiration. But it's its own separate story. And I opted to go with the more wider audience appeal because I'm planning on showing this to my family, for one. And my family has never seen the show before. They've never watched it. They know it exists, but they've never seen any episodes from it before. So going into Journey of the Spark, it's going to be their introduction to the show. So I opted to, just make sure that the story fits within the context of a film, not as a fan work or as a piece of fan service to the show that it's based on, just something that's inspired by the show that it was based on. And actually give them something enjoyable to watch and tell a story that not only evoked the right emotions, that made them laugh, that made them cry, that made them sit on the edge of their seats, but also made them care about the characters and make them want to go on the journey with them and grow to love them. Just as we, the fans of Friendship is Magic have grown to do for the last 3 years.
Right, and I think that's where a lot of movies based on TV shows falter, because they don't make the movies for the general audience. They make the movies for specifically the fans of the show. A good example I always like to use is the Star Trek movies. In the original cast movies, Captain Kirk and all that. Yeah. Those movies brought more people into the fandom because they were designed for outside audiences. But when you got up to the next generation, those movies were made only for the fans, and it really detracted. It kind of hurt the reputation of Star Trek for a while. That's why it took so long before we saw J.J. Abrams' movie come out. So, I mean, that's like what you're saying reminds me of that. It's like you want something that's going to not deter people from coming into My Little Pony, but to bring these people in and try to make them see things in a different light, than maybe they weren't seeing it before.
Because the thing is that other than the animated films that I mentioned that I grew up with, I'm also a humongous fan of Studio Ghibli. I love Hayao Miyazaki is one of my greatest.
Wonderful.
Yeah, he's one of my greatest inspirations. Because I didn't have because my dad wasn't really around all that much. I lived in a house completely dominated by women, so I became somewhat of a feminist, and I grew up watching Miyazaki's films, and I always just thought it was more interesting to see a female be the main lead and be interesting and be unique and actually have a personality, rather than just some buff dude with no personality just going in and kicking ass and taking names. Because that shit bores me. It works to a favor, like in say something like Terminator 2, because hey, he's a robot, but he's a robot that has emotions and has feelings and actually has a personality and actually develops a relationship, with John, in that sense. But it's I tried to get into something like Rambo, right? First Blood was great, because there was personality, but it's just after that, it's just I don't care for action films that just do nothing but action. Right.
And see, that's funny because I love action movies, but I do mindless action is fun to a point, but I like to see substance. I watched a movie like Die Hard. Die Hard has substance to it. You care about John McClane. You want him to get out of this situation that he's in. So it's important that you carry that personality so you care.
Mm-hmm. And and see, with me, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail for this, but I'm one of the few people in the fandom that absolutely hated A Candlelight Wedding, mainly because it suffered from what I felt season 2 ultimately suffered from a lot, which was style over substance, mainly due to the fact that a lot of season 2 really felt like introducing a lot of really unique ideas, but the character development almost kind of seemed something a little on the side. It was very rare when you would actually get an episode that would slow down and would develop the characters to an extent. And with Candlelight Wedding, it's the example of action that I feel just doesn't really have any substance or doesn't really make me feel anything. When the action is just so over the top and just doesn't really make me it doesn't give me a feeling that the characters are in any sort of danger, or the villain isn't really of any sort of threat, because they're written so generically and so cliche. That's when I can't care for it all that much, and that's why I just really couldn't get into A Candlelight Wedding, compared to most other ones, as I've described to some people. And,
well, in that regard, I'd be curious to get your opinions on the launch of season 3 in particular, and the awesomeness, heavy quotations used, that was King Sombra. That was
I liked Crystal Empire a little bit more than I did A Candlelight Wedding. In that sense. It still had its problems, though. I guess I'm just not a fan of Megan McCarthy's writing, honestly.
I see, yeah.
But Sombra, I didn't see as big of a deal as most people were making him out to be in terms of his poor, his poor development, because I kind of viewed him the same way that I do Sauron from the Lord of the Rings, is that he's more of like an entity, like a force of nature to be reckoned with, kind of like the whisper of his name kind of like evokes chills in you. It's like you don't really see much of him, but the name enough and what he's done in the past is enough to kind of just go like, oh man, now that sounds like somebody that I don't want to mess with, but
Right.
The thing is that the difference between Sauron and then Sombra, oh my god, their names even sound similar.
Oh god,
But,
conspiracy run.
the difference between the two is that Sauron actually was really, really threatening, and you didn't see all that much of him other than the flashback in Fellowship of the Ring. But with Sombra, you see so much of him, and it's not as subtle in that sense. If they would have just kept the flashback of him like enslaving the entire Crystal Empire, I thought that would have been okay, but they keep showing him, and he does that crystals, my slaves, like stuff like that. I'm like,
you're pretty good at that. That's
it's just like, oh god, that it's so stupid.
there's a saying in cinema that the face of fear is only scary if you don't show it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's something that a lot of horror movies nowadays falter with too. Is they it's like something is much scarier when you don't actually see it, and when they show it so much, it just kind of loses its sense of it loses its scare, like its scare factor. Like my favorite horror movie of all time is John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, dude, virtual high five.
Yes, awesome. I love that movie to death because that movie is like the perfect paranoia film and sci-fi horror film and gore fest like all in one, because what works so well about it is that it always completely screws with your expectations. It's like it's like it's like always saying it's like nobody knows who the thing is. Like every time you watch it, it's like you keep coming up with conspiracy theories as to like connect how the thing gets to assimilating its victims and getting to the next victim, and then eventually getting to the point where it transforms into the the monster that it is. But but oftentimes those details are like so interwoven like in the background that oftentimes you kind of miss it. So then it's like you just say, who's real and who's the thing, and that's where the horror comes from. That's where the paranoia comes from, is that you don't know, like every time, when you watch it. And initially getting my opinions of what I thought of the prequel, the recent one, I didn't hate it as much as other people did. I simply viewed it more as a fun monster movie to watch with friends on a weekend when you have nothing to do, rather than like an actual scary, horror film classic kind of deal. CGI didn't bother me as much because, I think they combined like prosthetics and actual, practical effects with CGI for some things. They did,
yeah. And
okay.
That was okay.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was as bad as most people made it out to be, but
I've seen far worse.
Yeah, exactly. Like my motto with a film has always been, I can't hate a movie unless it legitimately pisses me off. That's always been the way that I've looked at movies. So it's like oftentimes when people ask me, why don't you hate that movie? And it's like simple, because it didn't piss me off. Like a lot of people often ask me why I hate movies like Episode 1, like, Phantom Menace or Crystal Skull. And I was like, because I kind of understand where they were trying to go with it. And I saw potential with those movies, and I don't think they're that bad. Because compared to the crap that I've seen, they could be so much worse. Like you guys are so lucky compared to the stuff that I've had to sit through.
Well, yeah, especially you being a film student, I can only imagine some of the horrible examples of Hollywood that you've had to witness and Possibly even study. But
I had to sit through one of the worst movies that I ever had to sit through in my entire life because I was curious. Just because I was curious was a movie called The Nutcracker in 3D.
oh boy.
Oh my! It has a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, radical.
It is awful.
I know what I'm gonna have to check out next Christmas.
It is insanely awful. It is so bad.
Well, see, I've sat through The Room 4 times in a row, so
Yeah, even the Room doesn't piss me off. It makes me laugh.
No, the room is hilarious if you have the right crowd with you.
If you have the right crowd, definitely.
Yeah. This raises an interest. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. I think the only like mainstream film like to come from a director that I really really like that ever really truly pissed me off was the Brothers Grimm, the Terry Gilliam film. I really don't like that film. I really could care less for it. It just leaves me with like a really bad feeling. Like it's like such a it's such a mean-spirited film, I think. Like and it's a total tease too. It's a total lie because like they advertised it as a family film and yet it's way too dark for kids. It's way too juvenile for adults. Like it just doesn't really know what its audience is. And that's really saying a lot because Terry Gilliam's made a lot of really great movies like, Brazil and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Monty Python and the Holy Grail is another one. Those are all great films. Fisher King is another great one. So to see him make such a piece of crap like that, ugh, my God.
Yeah. Well, this brings up an interesting question, and I don't know how weird this would be to ask you, but how do you react when you watch something that you personally have created? Like when you go back, if you let something sit for a while, you come back to it with a fresh mind. Like how do you react? If you see something that pisses you off or something that you wanted to do differently, like how do you learn from that as a filmmaker, and how do you improve upon that?
It's always been, I mean, like, you're always your harshest critic. I mean, like, that's always been the saying. I mean, like, I go back and I watch some of my old stuff and I just go, oh my God, this is terrible, kind of thing. And especially considering like when you gain more abilities later on in your life and, you gain a lot of abilities in your career and then you kind of, go back and look at your earlier stuff and you often wonder what the heck were you on when you were making stuff like that. It's funny that you brought up like I sounded really good with the Sombra voice because I've also done voice acting. I've been doing that since 2008.
Yeah, I read about that too, and I actually wanted to ask you about that after when you did the Sombra impression because that was awesome, by the way. Aside from the parody show that you do, what other voice acting work are you getting into right now, if any at all, like in or out of the Brony community?
I'm not really doing much in the Brony community right now, other than an audio drama of On Across an Arrow. I voice Butterscotch, the male Fluttershy.
Nice.
And basically, this is kind of the voice that I kind of give him. So something a little bit down here, kind of very soft-spoken, something sort of like that. Something still a little more Fluttershy-ish, but more from a male perspective. And then I've done other fan dubs and audio dramas and things like that. The very first thing that I ever voiced was Mr. Babinski from Coraline in an audio drama adaptation of the book.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, so I got to do Russian accent, kind of something like that, something, kind of in that vein, a Russian circus owner. And then I've done other abridged series as well. I was actually trying to do an abridged series of Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, which is my favorite anime. And I voiced Simone for that. And I've done Simone's voice on various other different things. So Simone's voice is kind of similar to my Butterscotch one, but it's not as soft-spoken. So it's like, but it's basically kind of like, in that same sort of voice range, kind of something like a little bit higher up there, kind of almost preteen, in that way.
Right.
And then, I mean, I do a lot of stuff. I mean, when I first started out with my voice acting, I got really good with improvisational comedy because of I was part of an improvisational comedy group called Saving Point Dubs, and we would just parody and mock and dub over whatever the heck we wanted to, and I would develop my range there. So oftentimes I would do a lot of imitations of different actors and different things, and I would kind of twist it into my own different voices. So, you know, what I would do is that I would basically try and go from my highest to my lowest. So it's like, so this is pretty much the middle ground. Well, this is my regular voice. And then this is basically middle ground, pretty much where I would go. And then I would try and take it as high as I possibly could, like way up here. And then I would try and go lower without going raspy, you know, like that.
Ugh.
And it would basically
chills.
it would go into Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, you know, something like that.
Nice.
It's like the talk of a fool, you know, something like that. And you know, I would just kind of develop my range and, you know, do other things like that. And I've voiced in way too much, like, you know, for my own good. I've forgotten like almost half of them, even though I have my resume on there somewhere. But for Studio Ghibli dubs, I voiced Muska from Castle in the Sky. And I voiced the Baron in The Cat Returns. That was another one I did. I've also done, you know, additional voices for other anime anime fan dubs and stuff like that, like Romeo X Juliet. I did a few additional voices for that, and also did video game dubs. Kingdom Hearts 2 was one of them.
That's voiced, really cool. I actually love Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, voiced Goofy for that. Was
nice.
Goofy. So, Gore, Sora, the Heartless are coming. You know, that was Goofy's voice. So that was the voice that I did for him. And it just like all these things accumulating over like 5 years worth, I think. But it was it helped develop my skills as a director, to say the least, because it you know, because since I had professional, you know, well, not necessarily professional, but since I had experience actually acting, you know, I could direct the actors a lot better and get the specific emotions that I wanted.
Right.
Because I took acting classes when I was really, really young. My grandmother, before she died, used to take me out to Covina in like near Los Angeles, and she would take me out to acting classes there. I stopped going because it was just way too far. But I got a little bit of acting experience at a very young age because of that.
That's really cool. And actually, I gotta say, you're inspiring me to want to try voice acting. If I knew how to through my voice like you do, that's the only thing I can really do is a somewhat decent Mark Hamill Joker. But that's.
I would do the Mark Hamill Joker, but I because I can do it.
That would wreck your throat probably, especially just getting over the flu.
Well, I can try it. Just for people on the podcast. I need to get it in the range though. Now let me see. It's like well, because I mean because it's almost kind of in the same range as Muska, because Mark Hamill voices him in the English dub. So, you know, so. Kind of doing something a little more like this, Batsy? You know, something like that. So that's the Mark Hamill Joker.
Yeah, I always thought I used to think he was British when I used to watch the Batman cartoons, because he kind of throws that spin on it every now and then.
Yeah, and like Muska's voice is kind of almost like in the same degree, except it's a lot more serious. So yeah, you know, it's a lot more serious, and it's nowhere near as you know, elaborate, or in that case, you know, to say the least. But you know, beyond the Brony community, I mean, I've also directed a lot of other different projects beyond Journey of the Spark. I mean, Journey of the Spark is the thing that I'm the most well known for, but outside of that, I've also done an audio drama adaptation of Metroid, which was something that I wrote and directed myself. based on the Metroid video game series that Nintendo created.
Nice.
I was also working on an original Disney-inspired audio drama series called The Kingdom Chronicles, which was kind of like a hybrid between Epic Mickey meets Epic Mickey meets The Black Cauldron meets I'm trying to think, meets like Van Helsing, like in that sense.
Well, that sounds epic.
Yeah, it was pretty epic to say the least, but God, it was a bitch to write. It never got finished though because just way too many problems with the writing. But it was set to be something that I really wanted to do, but it never got off the ground. But I still have the scripts and everything too.
Do you think you'd ever return to it after Journey of the Spark finishes up?
I'd like to make it a film someday. I would, because I think the potential to take Disney in a much darker route, and especially in a much more emotional and epic stature, could be done. But Disney's very protective of their work, so right. I mean, I doubt it'd ever come up, but I know it would be something that fans would love to see someday.
See, Disney, I kind of wish that, like, I've had so many things I've wanted to see Disney do. I always thought Disney would be the perfect people to bring my hero from my favorite book series to the screen, Dirk Pitt from the Clive Cussler adventure novel series.
Yeah, I've heard of those ones, yeah.
Yeah, I think I actually was mentioning to you a couple nights ago that I wrote at least a very rough draft of an entire screenplay based on one of the novels. And so that, like, as far as that was like my first real jab at screenwriting, it's been a small goal of mine to someday see that made into a fan film in some form, because the movie that they did make was utterly horrible, and I'm like, well, I can do better than this, so I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, oftentimes when they don't get it right, you say I can do better. I mean, like, and and that's kind of the thing that I try not to say to myself when it comes to the Brony community, because a lot of people come to me for advice when it comes to making their films, and I tell them things such as, just don't do it for the wrong reasons. I mean, make it because you want to make it, not because you want to please an audience, or you want to actually, or it'd be because you want to get popular, or you want to get known. It'll be a lot better of a product if you do it from the bottom of your heart.
Yeah, totally. And that's funny, because I was actually I had that question set aside to ask you. It's like, what advice you would give to people in this community that want to branch out and do something ambitious, like a fan film, or even on another extent, like, there's a lot of musicians out there, just anybody that wants to get out and put themselves out there and put their heart on the line by making these projects. Like, really,
and really, I can honestly say this for anybody. I mean, like, I relate to a lot of people like you because, just to the people listening, because of the fact that when before Journey of the Spark even began, and when I first entered the Brony community, I was an absolute nobody, and I got the recognition and such that I got because I was just myself. I mean, I kept my sense of humility. Like, when I make a mistake, I take responsibility for it. I mean, and you shouldn't try to limit yourself when you're presenting yourself in this community, especially when you're working for free and you're not working on a budget or anything, and and stuff like that. And it was just like, it was just like, I mean, like, I mean, I'll tell you an experience like I had, because I've been going to a lot more conventions around the U.S., Brony conventions, and since I live in California, the last one that I went to was Equestria LA, and I was supposed to present at Equestria LA. I actually filled out a panel to Rina-chan, who's voicing on the film. She's voicing Princess Cadence.
Nice.
And she was the head. She was the panel organizer. And I sent out a panel to her, and I organized it with her and everything. And it initially got rejected. ultimately just because the money was way too high, for the convention, like renting out space and stuff like that. They didn't have enough money to get every panel that they wanted to accept, out there.
Yeah.
And so I mean, yeah, I was bummed, but I decided to go to the convention anyway, and it was an amazing experience because Journey of the Spark was starting to become really popular, and I walked around that convention center like on Saturday and Sunday, both days of the convention, and to my surprise, I mean, like almost everybody knew who I was or had heard about Journey of the Spark. And, it was like, and I mean, this movie in itself, is supported by Lauren Faust. She wants to see it. She wants to see the final product. She's excited. She's excited about it. I mean, like,
man. Now that's something that's an endorsement from the creator of the show for a fan film. That's incredible. Definitely props to you and your team.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and the thing is that, I mean, I walked around and it was such a taboo feeling, hearing that people like AC Race Best and Alex S and Saber Spark and Paleo and all these other really big people actually had heard about me or knew who I was. And it was insane. Like I would just walk up to them, I would say hi, I would introduce who I was, and they would be like, "Oh, you're that guy," or "Oh, you're this and this and this." And when I was at Lauren's panel, I walked up, to the microphone. I was really nervous, and I basically just introduced myself and said, "I'm a really huge fan of your work. I've been a fan of your stuff ever since you animated on Cats Don't Dance when I was a little kid."
She animated on that?
Yeah, she was the animator.
Oh, wow.
She was one of the animators for Sawyer. And that's one of my all-time favorite non-Disney animated movies. I love that movie to pieces.
It was a pretty, as far as non-Disney movies go, it was a pretty cute movie. I don't remember too much about it. I haven't seen it in years, but I think I liked it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I have the DVD of it.
Nice.
And I basically just said, thank you from the bottom of my heart for making the show, because it's inspired me to go and do what it is I want to do with my life, and that's making animated films. Eventually I asked, do you think you could give a shout out to my cast and crew working on a movie called Journey of the Spark? And as soon as I say the name of the movie, there was like 1,000 people in that room, I think, like over 1,000 people. And as soon as I say or mention the movie's name, there's murmurs amongst the crowd. Like people start talking about it, and like they start going, "Whoa, Journey of the Spark, what is that? Hey, that's the guy from Journey of the Spark. He's the director of that? Oh, that's so cool. That's the guy." Kind of thing.
That's awesome.
And as soon as I left that microphone, there was like thunderous applause. And like every single person in the Q&A line was asking me to give them a bro hoof. And
nice.
I wanted to cry. I mean, it was acceptance, and I mean, having come from a childhood where I felt as though nobody would ever like me as a person or my work, there it is, all encompassed in that one moment. And it was the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life. And
That's awesome.
And really, it's this movie as a whole, just its influence and just how much it's reaching out to people and how much people are excited for it and how much people actually really care about me and me wanting to finish it and succeed. I mean, that means the world to me. I mean, and all I did was just be honest with myself. It's amazing what you can do when you actually do something like that, when you're just honest and humble and respectable about the work that you do, and you never talk down to people about that.
Yeah.
You get buttloads of respect.
Yeah, no, and I totally relate. I mean, I've never had an experience like what you had, but because the experience you had, those types of things sometimes are like only once in a lifetime or once in a while in a lifetime, and they're life changing. Mm-hmm. I mean, but I remember I went on a forum for readers of the books that I read, and I passed my fan script along to a few people, and just the fact that I got positive praise at all from anybody was a great sense of pride. So I can just imagine for you being accepted by at this convention, being around all these people, like just the energy in that room and the pride and the joy of like all your work culminating in that one moment. That must have been it must have been life changing even now for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, and it was funny because I mean, Everfree Radio was, they were streaming the whole thing, and I didn't hear it, but after I left that microphone, I saw later on in the recorded video that Final Draft was actually leaning over to Lauren, and he was saying, "That's a big project. It's a huge deal." And she's like, "Is it?" And it's like, yeah, they've got animators and everything. It's ridiculous.
Nice. You're on the grid, my friend. You're on the grid.
Yeah, and as soon as it was great because I went to Lauren's autograph session, after her panel was done, and I told her, "Thanks for giving me the shout out," and she was like, "Yeah, I've never heard of this movie. What is it? What is it? I've heard it's like a really big deal." And so I pitched the movie to her. I just told her, this is what I want to do with it. It's a 2-hour and 15-minute animated epic, based on the show, and it's in the style of your vision, your original vision that you didn't get full creative freedom for, and all these things. And she gave me her personal blessing, and I got a picture with her, and I gave her the biggest hug that I could, and it was amazing.
That is amazing, man.
Yeah, and really, the more and more that I keep telling my family about this, the more curious they're starting to become about this whole pony thing. My mom in particular, I thought my mom was going to absolutely hate the idea of me wasting a majority of my time making a film for ponies. And now that I'm becoming popular and now that I'm becoming a huge name, my mom is just like... my mom is just like, I will buy you all these pony things kind of deal.
All of them.
All the pony stuff and whatnot. And it was just like, and, I mean, it was just like a really, it was just, this movie's changed my life. I mean.
I can tell.
Yeah,
it shows.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like I've never had an experience like it.
And it's like I said, man. Experiences like that are few and far between. And so the fact that you were able to experience that, I mean, you're gonna hold on to that for a while. And I can definitely see that it's gonna make this project the best possible thing that it can be. And it's just you telling me that story has me really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, and. That convention's. It's not even stopping there. I mean, I'm a special guest at Pwn3Con in Nebraska. I'm going to be presenting a panel over there, and then we have Everfree Northwest, and then we have BronyCon. So it's like we're going all over the U.S. This summer, and I was just like, wow. Yeah. I mean, BronyCon of all places. I mean, yeah. Holy crap.
Could you have seen yourself? Like with this project, touring to different conventions across the country, like a year or two ago, or even a few months ago?
Absolutely not. I didn't think it was going to get that big. I mean, at all. I just thought it was going to be something that people were just going to forget about, or people just weren't going to be all that interested in. But being as active as I am on Tumblr about the project and answering people's questions, and really appreciating my fans and interacting with them, I think that's helped the connection more, because I think that's interested people a lot more too. Yeah. Is just like, the sense of camaraderie between my fans and I, and just how much I care about delivering the best product that I can to them.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing, is caring about the quality of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Because, if it's not going to satisfy you, it's not going to satisfy the fans either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, no, I mean, just hearing like all this coming from you, it just has me ready to see it. And like, no matter what it ends up being, like you've got me sold just based on your experiences so far. And definitely give you the best of luck as you tour around the country with this, because it's going to build more hype and stuff for the movie, and it can only help you from here. It's like you're still going uphill, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And but honestly, I never would have gotten to this point if it wasn't for the people who signed on and the people who helped to get off the ground.
Right. And that actually brings me to one of the final questions I had set aside that I really wanted to get your take on. How important do you feel it is, if somebody's going to start a project like this, how important do you feel it is to make sure that the community stays involved, whether it's just being a fan of what you're doing or whether it's being involved in the production itself? Do you feel that it's like it's a big deal to be able to bring everybody together to make this one thing, to bring this one thing into the light?
That's a bit of a tough question for me because I'm in the position where within the community, within the Brony community, my film is not necessarily the target audience. Where I'm making I'm making the movie not because I wanted to appeal to a fan base. I'm making it just because I want to tell a damn good story. I mean,
Right.
that's I mean, like, I mean, as an artist, as an artist and especially as a director with a storyteller, for me, I feel as though when I go into writing anything and when I go into judging or criticizing or critiquing anything, I prefer not to have a specific bias, because
Right.
because when you have those type of preconceptions in your mind, it kind of often steers you away from actually accomplishing the goal that you originally set for yourself. And suddenly the production of anything goes from the real reason why you wanted to do it to another reason which probably may or may not be relatively selfish.
Right. You don't want to basically lose track of your vision of what you set out to do.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really difficult too, especially because of the fact that this is a non-profit project. So I've had to deal with a lot of people on the project where they ultimately feel as though, because of the fact that they're not getting paid, they have just about as much creative freedom as I do, when in reality that's not necessarily the case, because I'm the director and they're in a position far lower than I am, and I'm trying to get my vision across, but at the same time, I'm giving them as much creative freedom to visually tell the story, because they're doing a lot. I mean, they're visually telling my story,
Right.
and that's a huge thing in itself. So yeah, really, really appreciate the people that are working on your project, because it's like the people who are going to be worth working on your project are the people who are going to understand your vision the most. It's never going to work that way when you start getting into the industry itself. I mean, sadly, because, money is going to be involved, and, oftentimes you're going to get on a job where you're going to specifically do it for money. I mean, it's going to become less about creative freedom and your vision and more about whether or not your vision is appealing enough to actually sell bucks, sell tickets or something like that.
Right.
Lauren Faust, Lauren said it the best at EQLA. Find the jobs that will give you as much creative freedom as possible. Because if you find the people that give you as much creative freedom as possible, then whether or not you're a creative genius or you're a fucking hack, you'll get your point across better. It just really depends. I mean, with me, I love being a brony and I love a lot of aspects of the community, but I'm not making this movie for them. I'm making it because this is a very personal project and it's a very important story that I'm very proud of, and I want to share it with the world, and I want to make sure that the quality is as perfect as we can possibly make it. And we want it to be epic and grand in scale and scope. We want it to be darker than the original show, we wanted to be able to really, we wanted to be special, you know, like something to really be special. And I've had people tell me, because of the fact that I've actually gotten a lot more respect from people because of the fact that I'm not catering to the bronies.
Right. Well, but that's, hey man, I mean, it's like I was saying before, if you can't make it for yourself and be able to appreciate what you're doing, then nobody else is going to be able to appreciate it when it's done. You know what I mean? So I think that's important that you're staying on that type of course because it is your vision and you got to stay true to what you set out to do. And it's good that and it's important to acknowledge that while the people working on it are still fans just as much as you are, that at the end of the day, it's what you want to tell. So you got to do what you have to do to get it across.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And yeah, it can lead to conflict. A lot of it. I mean, Journey of the Spark hasn't been without its problems. I mean, it hasn't been without its fair share of drama and conflict. And yeah, a lot of it has come from mistakes that I've made, stupid things that I've said, and, you know, things like that. But, I mean, a year later, you know, I mean, almost like a year and a half later, it's still going.
Yeah, man, that's at the end of the day, that's what's important because with fan projects, everyone's going to want to say something, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
as long as it doesn't kill the project, it can only make the project stronger. You know what I mean? Because you weed out those people that, well, it's like you said, it's the people that are going to care about your vision the most that are worth keeping, and with fan projects especially, you're going to weed out the ones that aren't going to be as helpful, and you're going to get rid of them more quickly. So, if anything, you're going to go through some rough patches, but that's only to help the project move more quicker and more efficiently down the line, you know? That's at least how I view it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's been working so far because, I mean, the movie isn't even out yet. And, you know, that level of dedication and that level of quality, I mean, it's gotten, you know, massive critical acclaim. And I can honestly only think that, you know, when the film actually does come out, it's going to be really important.
For sure, man. And like I said, I, for one, am already looking forward to it. And I'm sure anybody listening to this, after hearing this, how can you not look forward to something this awesome? I mean, this is an example I think could apply to any fandom, to anybody that wants to just get out there and has a story they want to tell and just spread it around and get something started. You know, I think just if anybody listening to this, whether they're in the Brony fandom or not, is probably going to get inspired because you're clearly passionate, and I think that passion can be infectious, you know?
Apparently it has been.
Yeah. No joke. I mean, really, it's people like you can really start big things in any type of community. You know, so that to me, that's something that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I just come from the background of, you know, the fact that I just come from the background where, you know, I'm not trying to start a movement. I'm not trying to be part of a movement. I'm just trying to tell stories that I personally want to tell, and a lot of them are from the bottom of my heart. And, you know, I try to put as much love and care into them as I would anything, really, because they're a part of me. They're a part of my imagination. I mean, that's why I grew up watching films and loving them, because they were films that because, you know, during my childhood I didn't have any friends, and so, you know, I mean, like, I would come up with stories on my own. I mean, like, I can't tell you how many times as a kid I would go home and I would turn on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I love that movie too. And I would get so invested within the world and the characters, and they'd almost become my friends in a way. Like, I know them. It's like, I know how the story's going to end. I know that I know that Judge Doom is going to be. I know what his identity at the end is going to be, and it's like the same thing goes for other films that I watch too, like The Dark Crystal. I'm a huge Jim Henson fan. I mean, with The Dark Crystal, I mean, I know that Jen is going to be the savior. I know that he's going to save the day. I know that he's going to restore the crystal and, save the land and make it lush and green again. I know all of this. I know how the stories are going to end, and yet for some reason, every time I watch them, they still evoke something new in me. Like, they become my friends. They inspire stories that I want to continue. And, like, the same thing kind of goes with when my parents used to take me to Disneyland a lot when I was a kid. I would go on the rides and I would just think of like different scenarios and different stories. Like I would go on Star Tours and
Nice.
I would always imagine myself as like an astronaut and like I'm like an astronaut or a secret space agent or something like that. And I was going on a vacation. And so I would get on the Star Speeder 3000 and I would be like going on a trip to the Ender moon. But then, hijinks ensue. And then, you get blown off course and, just action and adventure ensues. And that's why I love storytelling. That's why I love film. And that's why that's how I became who I am. It's just that sense of storytelling. And I wanted to be able to do that through my stories and through my films. And I felt that, when I dig really deep down, I think the real reason why I love My Little Pony Friendship is Magic as a whole is, not really even the writing. It's just the fact that these characters, they evoke something in me that I haven't really felt with the show in a while, and that's my childhood sense of imagination. Like they almost they almost inspire the same feeling that I got when I used to watch those movies when I was a kid, and I kind of basically want to make another kid kind of feel the same way. Like I want to be able to to make a movie where a parent will show, their son or daughter in the future, and they will basically go, hey, kids, you want to watch a movie? And they'll start watching it, and they'll learn to grow and fall in love with the characters in the world and, go along with the journey and the story and get something out of it and possibly inspire them to want to do the same thing with their lives in the future.
That's pretty intense, man. And hey, no, seriously. I mean, sorry, I use the word intense a lot. That's my vocabulary is extremely limited. But it's who's to say that won't happen with Journey of the Spark? That somebody won't watch that and be just as captured as you were with Roger Rabbit or with The Dark Crystal. It starts with something small.
Yeah,
like a fan film, and it can only lead to better things, which is pretty awesome, in my opinion.
Yeah, I sincerely hope, I'm dreaming and I'm hoping for one day that I'll probably get a little kid. Oh God, I am tearing up. My goodness, because I loved E.T. so much as a kid that I actually wrote a letter out to Steven Spielberg at Amblin Entertainment up in Los Angeles in Hollywood. And I wrote a letter to him saying, Dear Mr. Spielberg, your movie has inspired me and, has touched me so much, that I want to make movies like you. You're like my, you're like my role model. I really, really love your work. And he sent me an autographed picture back in the mail. And that thing was like my prized possession for years, but I lost it and I'm still trying to find it. But I hope and pray that one of these days I'll just be walking down the street and I'll see a mom and maybe his son or daughter, and they might recognize me or they might recognize my voice or something, and they'll ask me, hey, are you the director of Journey of the Spark? And I'll go, yeah, that's me. And they would say, oh, hi, it's nice to meet you. My son and or daughter is a really huge fan of your movie. And, getting that type of feeling, knowing that my film is done, knowing that I've done my job, knowing that I've done it right. I mean, that would mean everything to me.
Yeah, man, and I hope that it gets to that point for you, dude, because it sounds like you, as passionate as you are, you deserve something like that. So, I mean, I give you a lot of credit, and I definitely hope that this movie goes everywhere that you want it to go, and I hope that people respond to it well, and because it sounds like something that's going to be really, to for lack of a better word, epic, to recycle that word once again.
Well, it is an epic. I mean, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, so
it's going to be the Lord of the Rings of pony movies for sure.
Well, I mean,
or the Dark Knight, if you will.
I mean, those ones were like 2.5 to like 2 hours and 45 minutes tops. I mean, like 2 hours and 15 for a pony film. I mean, considering that it's going to be the first of its kind. I mean, yeah, that's going to be fairly long, but I mean, it could be longer.
Yeah, that's where the magical editing room comes into play.
Yes, the magics.
Yeah, make it happen. But yes, man, this is like I said, and I'm sure I can speak for the rest of the guys on the podcast. This is an exciting project, and especially after talking to you, I'm more excited. And I can only hope that listeners will hear this and subscribe to your site and stay updated, and subscribe to the YouTube page, and just like be ready for the updates as they come. And when the final movie comes, I think it's gonna hit pretty hard, and I think it's gonna blow up. or at least I sincerely hope it does, because just hearing you talk about it, I mean, there's going to be nothing but awesomeness and good vibes going into this project.
And there's going to be a lot of tears, I think, because I mean, it's it's a very sad story. It's a very emotionally heavy story. That's one thing for sure. There's a lot of really tear-jerking moments. And I'm hoping that the right emotions will get with everybody. I really want to see it with a live audience, because I know that once the film is finished, we're going to screen it at conventions. There's going to be screenings that we want to do, and I'm possibly thinking of doing test screenings, like maybe show a rough cut of the film to like test audiences in private. I don't know. I mean, it's an idea, but no, I mean, like it's not even confirmed, at this point. But, if I get to see a grown man cry at all during my film, I know that I've done my job right.
And I hope I could be at one of those screenings so I could document that, because that would be pretty fun, pretty awesome.
Well, where exactly? Oh, you said you're in Florida, right?
Yes, I am. I'm not too aware of what they've got going on down here Brony-wise yet. I haven't heard too much.
I think there is a convention that they're actually having somewhere up in Miami. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's somewhere during the summer, but we know that we're confirmed for when the film is finished. We've already confirmed Pone 3, and we've already confirmed that Midwestria. Those are going to be the two that we're going to do screenings for, but we're hoping to do it for Equestria LA, Everfree Northwest, and BronyCon.
Nice.
If BronyCon stays on the Northeast, like if they stay on the the eastern side of the US, then I think BronyCon is going to be our premiere. I would say.
Oh, nice. I would love to be able to make a trip up to see it. If that's going to be the premiere, I will save the date whenever the date might be.
Because I think a lot of the people actually who work on the film live on the East. There's a lot of people working on the film that actually are from Europe, though, so they might have to make the trip overseas. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that BronyCon is going to be the big premiere. And then I know that Equestria LA, because a lot of my family, like my mom and dad, they live here in California. And mom and dad, if you're watching this, thanks. Giving thanks to you. And I know that Equestria LA, I want to have a premiere for my family so they can come out and see it and watch the film themselves. And my folks can actually get a little bit of a taste of what this whole brony thing is about, to say the least. I think it'd be interesting.
It'll definitely be interesting to document their reactions. That'll be.
Oh yeah, totally.
People will be making a documentary about your film's effect on the brony community. It'll be the Brony documentary part 2, Journey of the Spark.
except it probably won't be as controversial.
No, probably not. I don't think your film would get quite that type of controversy around it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk much about the Brony documentary. I mean, because I know that there's been a lot of controversy. You know, just split opinions.
Right.
People hate it and detest it for ever being made. But you know,
and truth be told, I haven't even sat down to really analyze it myself.
I liked it just because it was entertaining. I don't know if it was necessary, but you know, I liked it. I mean, I didn't hate it. But I didn't think it was amazing either. There were some things that I thought was entertaining, but that's besides the point. If Journey of the Spark ever got a documentary, I'd flip my shit. I literally would. I mean, because I think for film enthusiasts, you know, and film fanatics, I think it'd be really interesting to actually kind of tell the story about how a huge project like this, a huge film, ever got off the ground and didn't actually fail. You know, like it didn't actually crash and burn, because I mean, there have been films in the Brony community that have tried to get off the ground that ended miserably. A lot of the cast on Journey of the Spark was working on a film called Project Saturation, and a really bad case of drama ultimately ended that thing, and the drama spread more publicly more than they honestly wanted it to, and you know, it ruined people's expectations of, you know, films getting finished in the community as a whole. It was really that bad, and people just ultimately felt that with Journey of the Spark, the reason why people didn't really want to believe in it at first was because it was just too ambitious. But it's still going, and
I think that ambition will pay off without a shadow of a doubt.
And I mean, it's still going, it's still alive, it's still being worked on. So I'm just gonna say, screw the naysayers.
Screw the haters, man.
The naysayers.
Oh boy. Oh, you've got puns, huh? Oh,
Yes.
This is gonna be fun.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it would behoof of you to not to curtail your. Sorry. No, yeah, I could string a sentence of them together right now. I'm just gonna stop myself from doing that.
No,
Okay.
that would be amusing.
Oh my god.
That's kind of the thing, is that oftentimes on Journey of the Spark, the crew and I, we just screw around often a lot, much to my chagrin, because I'm very serious about my work and they're not as much. But I mean, to each his own. But still, there are just days when we just mess around, and one day was when we just started throwing cow puns at each other.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
I can imagine it required a strong bit of calculation to be able to.
Oh.
There it is. He hits it out of the park. Home run.
Oh gosh.
It's
Okay.
gone.
Gone.
And on that note, oh man. But Eric, no, it truly has been a pleasure to get to talk to you tonight. And like I said, all the best to you and the crew and everybody involved making this film. That brings up a question. Is there any way that listeners out there could reach you if they wanted to send you messages of support, or or questions, if you even take questions about the production? I don't know if you do.
Yes, I do. You guys can contact me on various different places. My most prominent one is filmsparkmovie.tumblr.com. That's the movie's production blog that I run. I answer questions on there almost every day. And and like some of the questions I get aren't even pertaining to the movie itself. It's for the movie itself and my thoughts on the brony community and other different things and such like that. So yeah, that's one thing. If you guys want to just message me and talk to me, I'm available to talk with on my inbox, my email, the movie's official email, which is officialsparkmovie@gmail.com. You can also send in applications if you want to apply for the film itself. If you're an artist or an animator, we're in desperate need of animators right now. We need a lot of Flash animators if we want to actually get this thing off the ground. And then there's also the movie's YouTube channel, which is just FIM Spark Movie, so FIM Spark Movie. The guys will have links probably on the podcast so that way you guys can check them out. But yeah, I'm not an evil person, so you guys can talk to me if you want to. I mean, I love meeting new people, and I love talking with people who are just about as passionate about film as I am.
I can vouch for him, guys. He's nice. He's nice. I
Yes.
was here. I can say for sure.
Well, yes, considering the fact that we have been talking for
about 2 hours, just about.
Yeah, for almost about 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fun to see the reactions to this interview. That's another thing that excites me for sure. But until that point, man, I guess I will call it a night. Like I said, once again, it was a pleasure. And to our listeners, all the links that he mentioned, we will make sure get posted in the podcast description so you could click right to them. And once again, I'm Artfan for Pony411. Eric, do you have any closing words for our listeners? Yes,
and I'm going to do it in a very epic voice.
Rock and roll, brother. Let's hear it.
All right. I want to try and do this in like some sort of voice. Okay. Let me try and think of one. This is Eric Ridenour, and you've been listening to Pony411. Stay tuned for Journey of the Spark in the holiday 2014.
Bravo. Yes, that is, you need to do movie trailers. I don't care if it's fan films. You just need to go and...
In a world where kids threw balls at each other.
Oh, man. Yeah. I've been waiting for someone to replace that guy, that voice. Ever since...
In a world.
Oh, man. But yeah, dude. Thank you so much for hanging out and just chatting with me for the past 2 hours. It's been awesome. And hopefully we can have you on the show again sometime, or even... I mean, shoot, if you ever want to chat with any of us on Skype, you probably have a couple of our usernames now, so we'd love to hear from you.
Currently, I only have you.
Oh.
You're the only person from the podcast that I have, but I've talked to Kevin through email, so that's really interesting. Or 4string.
Yep.
Also talked to him through Twitter, so that's one thing. But no, all I can say is thank you guys very much for listening. Hope you guys found this interview informative. If I made some people actually shed some tears or something like that, then I didn't mean to. I was just being myself. But no, thank you very much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure, and thanks to everybody who listens to this. Without you guys, the people who support the film and the people who are looking forward to it, I wouldn't actually be doing what it is that I love doing, and that's telling stories.
That's awesome, dude, and keep on telling those stories, because we need more people like you out there for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man, definitely. And that is it for us with this interview. Thank you so much for listening, viewers, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good night, and pony responsibly.